Okay, so for now, let's just doing some refreshment. What is object-oriented in class, as we said in lecture and repeated. Object-oriented programming style is to create an object which is a frame which I create a class, I'm sorry, which is considered as a frame or as a base class. And then from this frame or base class, I can create as many objects as I want. And each object will have its value and its methods. So we said what is a class is, and we said that we have something called the members of the class. And the member of the class are two different things: the variables of the class and the methods of the class. And what is the methods again? Methods are the function that we explained before. So inside each class we will have methods and variable together are called the members of the class. And you can assign these members as public or private. We will talk about public and private, but simply private, that would be accessible only inside the class, but public could be accessible inside the class and outside the class. And how to create a new object using the new, and how to access any variable or member of a class by the object, we use the dot, as we said. And this, to just remind you, is refer to the current class. And again, we only can have one main function or one main method inside the class, and we will have only one public class inside our program. And also to remind you what is mutator and accessor. The mutator method is the methods that can change the value of the variable, but accessor only will access the value and show it to you, present it to you. It's a different type of method. Static and this kind of stuff, we will talk later about that. But let's we go for a small journey on creating a new class, and just try to do a rectangle class as we did in the lecture. So here I will do a new class, and I will call it rect, stand for rectangle. I'd prefer to have a value like capital R. I will include a void main inside this one, and I will create this class. This class is rect. This is the name of the class. This is the main method of the class. You should have only one main method here. If you would like to work with the variables of the class, we start by, as we said again, each class should have a members, and the members of the class are two things: the variables, again guys, and the methods. The variable can be anything. So I will, for example, do integer, as we did in the rectangle, the height, and integer width. So those are two variables of the class rectangle. How to create an object of this class? Object mean one rectangle. I can have many rectangles, many objects. Each of them will have a value phrase. We talked about that, but just remind you. So in order to do a new object, I just use the name of the class equal new rect, and here now I created a new object of this class A. By creating an object, this object A have an access to the variables or the members of the class. So A could access the height and width. If I would like to assign a value inside these variables, that would be okay. A dot height, for example, equal 10, and A dot width equal 20. And in order to remind you again and again, this assignment which we did right now is regarding to the object A. So for example, if I have another object B, created again, new rect, that doesn't mean the height and width of B is 10 and 20. That is not correct. So if I assign a value, this rect is called the base class. Be aware of that. This is the base class. A and B are objects of the base class. Each one of them will have a set of its variable. So A, if I assign A dot height equal 10, A dot width equal 20, those are the values for object A. So to be sure of that again and again, I'm sorry I'm repeating that many times, but it's just to make sure everything is okay. Print ln. I will print A dot height. If I run that, so I have the value as 10. To be sure, I will remove this one and put b. I didn't assign any value to b. If I run that, I will have 0. Why 0? Because as we said, we talk a little bit after 2-3 minutes from now about the constructors of the class. This is called a constructor initialize a variable by 0. But this is to mean that even if I assign the value of height to 10, but this is only for A and not for B. Now, if I would like to do a method of the class, for example, we said we will have a method calculating the area. So I will have public, and I will ask myself a question. Did this method will return something? I think yes, it will return the area. So I will have it, for example, double or integer as I want, but this is referring to the type that this method will return. Give me as a result. Return means give me as a result. So now I will check pick a name. So I will call it area, for example. And here, this one will accept an input, yes or no? No, I don't think I need to accept any input because I will use the current class. Okay, so now I have this method here. Is I'm inside here? No. Okay, so I have a method. This is what is called a method. Double area. Here inside the area, what should I do? I will declare a double, for example, result. Not equal anything, and this result will be the height multiplied by the width. Okay, so this is the height multiplied by the width. Okay, and if I would like to call this one here, the value that is returned should return it to area. So now I created an object. I can say, for example, double r, which is to return the result, and r will equal a dot area. Okay, so now if I call this one, if I call this function right from here, it should go to this area. Okay, and so we're going to continue here. So I have this method like area. I declared a variable like result, and result equals the width multiplied by height. As long as I define this double as to return, I should return something here to return result. Now I'm okay. Back to the calling here, I declared a variable r, and I called the area of A, and I would like here to announce the value of r. The value of r here should include what? The multiplication of height multiplied by width, which are the area of this rectangle. If I run that, I would have 200, which is a multiplication of 10 multiplied by 20. Okay, so this is called how to call a method. This is our old. We talked about that before, but just to refresh that, and here to stress on something. Here you said height multiplied by width. And how can the compiler know that you ask for the height, which is 10, and the width, which is 20? That's happened because I'm calling here the area method of the object A. So the compiler will look at A, will look at the height and width of A. Okay, so now to be sure about that, if just we declared this one as B, so now you are calling the area method of B, not this one. So the compiler will take a look here. What is the value of height? Is it 10? No. The height equal 10 for A and not for B. For B, height equal 0 because it's initialized as 0. Width equals 0. So if you run that, you'll have a value of 0 returned. Is that okay? This is how to create a class, how to create an object of this class, how to access a variable of object of that class, and how to do a method, how to call this method, and difference between different methods. Let's come back to our previous lecture, which we talked at, if you remember, about Yeah, this lecture which we talked about the constructor. Remember that? Constructor. Yeah, from here. Yeah, this is a constructor. So, in general, each Java class has something called a constructor, and this constructor is considered a method. It's automatically created inside the class. So you have two options. Either you create it yourself, you write it down yourself, or you don't. If you don't write it yourself, the compiler will automatically create it. And what is the goal of the constructor? Constructor is created just to initialize, for now, to initialize the variables of the class. It's used to initialize the variable of the class. So, if you not initialize it, the compiler will do automatic initialization to every numerical variable to 0, each Boolean variable to false, any character reference to null. This is called automatic compiler. This we called the default constructor. This is called the default constructor. So guys, be aware, if you don't create your own constructor inside your own class, the compiler will do it for you, and it will be the default constructor, and this default constructor will be used to initialize your variables by like 0 for numerical value and false for the Boolean, and what else? Yeah, and null for the string. So I would like, I will remove that. I will try to, so I have integer height, integer width. I will do like Boolean h, for example, and I will do like string t, for example. Okay, so now if I would like to, this string is capital here. So I created an object a dot height equal 10. So what is the time? This is a very important point. What is the time that this constructor is operated or executed? Because as we know, as I told you, if I have a method, I have to call this method in order to be executed, like we did with area here before we remove it. Area, this function or this method that was here, will not execute it for myself. I have to call it like this in order to be executed. Okay, so where this one will be executed? This one will be executed when I created an object. So once I said rect A or created an object of the class, the very first thing that happened is the constructor of the class will be executed. If I don't have, compiler will look here, you don't have a constructor. Okay, so I will initialize those for you. So in order to be sure, we will just would like to know what is the value of height, a dot height, and let's do like /n here, plus, sorry about that for formatting, and a dot the Boolean, which is h, plus, no, it's not height, h only, and plus /n and string a dot t. So I'm just printing out the variables of this class. So if I run that, I should have a value for height, which is a numerical as integer as 0. This is automatically initialized, and a variable for h, which is Boolean, as false, and a variable for of t, which is string, as null. This is the default constructor. Do that. Even if you change this a by b here, you will not find any change. It will still remain as false. So as long as at the same time as I created this object, the default constructor will be executed. This is the first thing. If you decide not to do a constructor yourself, but if you decide to have a constructor yourself, how can you create a constructor? You created a constructor very easy. The constructor is the same name like your class. So if you have a class like it's called rectangle, so this constructor will be the same name, and you use to initialize your variables yourself, and you have your option either to initialize all the variables available in your class or settle them. Let's see how. If I go here, how many variables I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Where's to put a constructor at? Constructor, again, guys, is a method. I cannot do it inside the main function. It should be somewhere here. So I do it like this, public, and same name, rect, and here's the constructor, and now I can use it to initialize as many variables as I want. For example, I would like to initialize only the height. I would like to do that. I'm free. I can do whatever I want. So I will say integer, for example, anything, if. And inside here, I will say the height equal f. So now I'm initializing the height only. But now you cannot create an object. If you do that, if you have a constructor accepting input here, you cannot create an object like this. So this object, when you create it by new, you have to pass it here as input to go to the constructor. As we said, it's the free first thing to be executed. The value that you would like to put on f, which, by the way, f will be put inside the height. So for example, I said here 10. And here I said 20. So I initialized, what I did right now, I initialized the value of height for the object A to 10 and for object B to 20. So now I will say A.height and here B.height. If I run that and here A.t, did I initialize t? I didn't initialize t. So if I run that, I will have the 10, which is the height of A, the 20, which is the height of B. I initialized it myself. It's not 0 anymore, guys. And here is still the null. Now, I would like to initialize, for example, the string. So I will have a string h, not h, let's say te is like this. And I will say t equal te. What does that mean? So t here is initialized by the variable you pass here. Now you cannot create an object like that. You have to create your object by passing here another one. So now I will say constructor A, and here I will pass constructor B. If I run here that, now I will have constructor A. What is constructor A, guys? Because I would like to have A.t. If I would like to have here B.t, so now if I run that, I will have constructor A and constructor B. So, and I can extend my constructors here to initialize as many variables as I want. So I can use it to initialize only one variable. What about the other? If I initialize one variable, it will be initialized using the default constructor. And two variables, three variables. So for example, I have here 1, 2, 3, 4. I use my constructor to initialize only two, the height and the string, this string. If for example here I said here A.width, what do you expect? I didn't initialize width. So if I run that, I will have it as 0 because the default constructor will do that for me. Okay, this is what's called the constructor of the class. Okay, so I will end this video right here and I create another video.